was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed.
Hello, 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 and thank you so much for tuning in to A Spoonful of Comfort. I am Claudrine Jackson, your host for A Spoonful of Comfort. It is an honor and a privilege for me to be able to speak to you every Tuesday right here on WHPR at 1:30. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being tuned in to this station. I want to say thank you to the people for listening and watching. Thank you to the people for donating. And my wish for you is may you have sunshine to greet you, adventures to meet you, joy in whatever you do, God's presence to guide you, and good friends beside you, and blessings all your life through. That is my wish for you. And I want to thank the people who are watching and who are donating. The Purvis Jackson Jr. Autism Foundation is my reason for doing this show. So the show is sponsored by the Purvis Jackson Jr. Autism Foundation, but I also want to mention the Lemon Burn Fat Burner. It's a product that you'll be hearing more about, and it helps you get rid of stomach fat. Now, when I was younger, I was worried about that stomach fat. Now, I just cover it up. But anyhow, those of you who are concerned about getting rid of stomach fat, among the other things that Lemon Burn does. So you'll be hearing more about Lemon Burn on this station. I want to thank the people from Your Cause. It's an organization that I don't know, I had never heard of, but they sent a donation to the Purvis Jackson Foundation. They are trustees, they say, it's the BOSCH company. I'm not surely certain about how you pronounce that, Bosch. They are trustees for the Bosch company, and they sent a donation to the Purvis Jackson Foundation. And I am just overwhelmed and thankful to the people that find it in their heart to help people such as my son, people with handicaps. You know, I constantly talk about my son, and I try not to over talk about him because I know autism is not everybody's favorite subject. But last week I had him on the show, and if you get a chance to find the show on YouTube and you check the December 3rd edition, you will see Purvis Jackson Jr. on the show again. And the reason that I have Purvis Jackson Jr., it's the second time that he's been on my show. He can't talk, but the reason I have had him on my talk show is because I want the police and the community to be aware that there are people like my son who are out and about in the community. Now, people with autism were institutionalized up until 1975. That was the year they quit putting them in institutions. So they are in the community. Now, they are very well protected. My son is very well protected. He's always with someone unless he walks away. And that's what happened. He walked away. The police were called on him. He walked away from me. I had no idea he was out of the house. The police were called on him, but I was blessed that once the lady started talking to him and following him, that he came back home. He knew he was wrong. He came back home, and she was able to cancel the police call. But it could have been so much worse. it could have been, I could have been one of those parents on television crying and saying that, how did this happen to me? And how did this happen to my son? So that's why I wanted you to see him. So if you can see the December 3rd episode of A Spoonful of Comfort, you'll see that. And I want to thank R.J. Watkins and Henry Tyler and Maxine Willis for keeping this station going. They have provided a platform for people like me to express our concerns and our desires for the community. So I thank you so much to R.J. Watkins and Henry Tyler for starting all this many years ago, for keeping it going, because I know it wasn't easy. Nothing that has gone on for this long has been easy. So I thank them so much for giving the community a platform. And while the donors from your cause, thank you. Some of the donations are anonymous, so I have no idea who's making the donations. So if you want to make a donation to the Purvis Jackson Foundation, you can send it to Post Office Box 04422, Detroit, Michigan 48204. That's Post Office Box 04422, Detroit, Michigan 48204. You can also contact me at that post office box. You can also contact me at my email address, which is jacksonclaudrine at sbcglobal.net. Jackson Claudrine, CLAUDREEN, at sbcglobal.net. You can also contact me by way of Facebook. Yeah, isn't everybody on Facebook? And while I'm thanking the people, I want to also thank Renee stepping out on Faith Jones. Renee, thank you for stepping out on Faith. Renee does a dozen jobs around here, and she's so capable and dependable and competent. And I really appreciate you, Renee, and I thank you. And it was Renee who suggested that I have Purvis Jr. back on the show, because I didn't know if I was going to or not. But she confirmed something that was in my head. So thank you, Renee, for having him back on, for suggesting to me to have him back on the show. And thank you to our wonderful engineer, Tim Smith. If you do get to see the December 3rd show, it's on YouTube. The show is called A Spoonful of Comfort, December the 3rd. If you get to see the show, you will see Purvis Jr., and you will see Purvis Jr. and my daughter, Stephanie, who was also a guest on the show. They were singing together and wishing you a Merry Christmas. And PJ was, we won't say singing with Stephanie, but he was participating. And then Stephanie sang a song, and PJ sat there and looked like he was going to sleep. And after he was off camera, Stephanie and I were talking, and she started singing again, and PJ kind of woke up and became alert. And our wonderful engineer here, Tim Smith, caught that shot of PJ, Purvis Jr., looking like he didn't have autism, looking aware of his surroundings and of what was going on. And that captured one of the biggest mysteries of autism. You know, autism is described by a puzzle because their condition is so puzzling. So I thank you, Tim, for capturing that other part of PJ and documenting it. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family, because people, thanks to you, people got to see the other side of PJ. So I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate all the people that have been my support, my encouragement. You know, they say it takes a village. it took a village to get me up off my knees crying about autism and get me to this point where I'm trying to help other folks who are going through what I was going through. And like I said, the reason that I had PJ on the show was because of my fear of him being out in the community. He's the one that if the police say hands up, he's not going to put his hands up. If the police say stop, he may not stop. He may even come toward the police. So that is one of my fears for his safety. But he's very well protected. He's not with me all the time now. He's with Bennett Home Care. Pastor Germany Bennett and Kimberly Bennett are wonderful people in the community, dynamic forces in the community. They have a number of group homes, and PJ being with them, I feel very comforted that there are people like them in the world that help people like me with folks like PJ. Also, Jewish Vocational Services. PJ goes to Jewish Vocational Services day programs, and they take them out in the community. They go shopping, they go bowling, they take them to movies, they take them to restaurants. And I'm so thankful that Michigan is a state that has these kinds of services for people like my son. When I first discovered PJ's condition in 1976, I was just devastated. And then I found out that autism is a spectrum, and there's a higher end of the spectrum and the lower end of the spectrum, and people on the higher end of the spectrum can accomplish and do things and maybe succeed as much as anyone that doesn't have autism. Well, my son was not one of those. My son was on the lower end of the spectrum, as you will see if you get to see the show from last week. But the fact that we parents struggle to get our children to a certain level, if it doesn't happen, if they're still like my son, who is 44 and can't read and can't write and can't talk, we still love them. They are still greatly loved. If he ever realizes his condition, he will say, but I was still loved. So that's one of the main things that the Purvis Jackson Autism Foundation wants to do, is offer support to parents of children such as my son. It's not just autism. We help whatever disability. But wealthy parents have advantages that poorer parents don't have. I've been in both situations, so I know very well what challenges they go through with challenge that a parent of a child with a handicap goes through. Everybody who's a parent, you know we have challenges on a regular basis. And when you're the parent of a child with a handicap, you have multiple challenges. Challenges that can get you down. We can't cure any parent's problem with their child, but what we can do is try to put a smile on their face for one day, give them a little comfort. That's why this show is a spoonful of comfort, because everybody has a spoonful of comfort. So I'm going to take a short break. Please stick with me for more of A Spoonful of Comfort.
Almost
I hope you enjoyed seeing Almost. And thank you, Tim, our wonderful engineer who surprised me with that. Almost is a song that my husband is singing. So that was Purvis Jackson Sr. singing. And the three bass singers that you saw on the video are Trey Cruz, Paris Delane, and Jesse Peck, who is now the bass singer of the Spinners. They put out that song on Trey Cruz's album as a tribute to Purvis Jackson. The song is 30 years old. It was in my first book of poems, Let There Be Light. Purvis sang it 20 years ago, and they resurrected it and brought it back to life. So thank you to the three bass singers who brought Almost back to life. Now, if you want to see it again, you can go to Trey Cruz, TRECRUZ.com. Trey Cruz was one of the young men on the video. He's the man that Purvis was mentoring. Well, he was a kid then, 13 and 14, that Purvis was mentoring before he passed away. So I'm so grateful to Trey and Jesse and Paris for paying a tribute to Purvis. And they didn't know that they were also paying tribute to me because I was the one that wrote the song. So thank you so much for listening to Almost, dancing to Almost, because it's something that you can dance to. So I wanted to mention to you about my new book that's coming out. It's at the publishers now as we speak, and it's called The Butterfly. And it's a new book of poems. You know, it's a small book. You can carry it in your purse. And oh, men don't have a purse. Well, I don't know what you all are going to do. I don't know if it'll fit into a pocket, but it's another book of poems, and I want to share with you the poem that inspired the title of the book. This poem is called The Butterfly. And the book is called The Butterfly. And when you see the book, that's also my son's artwork. That's The Butterfly is. You know, I had his artwork on my book, Inspired by Autism, and I have his artwork on this book. He has so many deficits that I try to show that he does have ability, and everyone, no matter how deficient they are, has something to offer. He even offers comfort. When you say, PJ, I need a hug, he gives you a hug, and there was a time he wouldn't even touch you. So The Butterfly is my new book that's coming out. The Butterfly. It was dark and scary, and the butterfly cried. He wanted someone to let him outside. He couldn't get out no matter how hard he tried. And he was real scared that he was going to die. He screamed out for help from someone passing by, but they kept on walking, and he continued to cry. He screamed and he cried until someone came along, someone who listened to his frightening song and said, with my knife, I will cut your cocoon, and you will be able to fly away soon. So he said, you are free. No more need you cry. Now you can go. You are able to fly. But he couldn't fly because his wings were still weak. He couldn't fly no matter how hard he tried. His wings just hung by his side. His wings were still weak because he hadn't used his strength to get out of the cocoon. He couldn't fly no matter how hard he tried. His wings were still weak. They just hung by his side. It's so very sad that his wings were so weak that he could not fly. Unfulfilled destiny. Now, had he used his own strength and not sang his sad song, the muscles that he needed would have been strong. So though there are times when we feel we need help, there are some things that we must do by ourselves. Now, the butterfly poem is my poem, but it's not my story. The butterfly story is an old story, probably older than me. But the the anthropologists and the people that work with the biologists and all, they say that the butterfly coming out of the cocoon, he has to work hard to get out of the cocoon. And that's what strengthens his muscles so that he can fly. So for those of us, when we're in a situation and we want help and we don't get the help, maybe it's to develop us to the point where we can accomplish things on our own. I have been in a situation where I felt like the butterfly, which is one of my reasons for loving that story and putting it in verse. There are times when I was wishing I had help and didn't have help. But I still survived. And for all those of us who don't get the help when we think that we need it, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a reason. And now The Butterfly is a poem that'll be in my new book. But I want to share with you a scripture and a poem from my book that's already out. The scripture is Philippians 2:13. That energy is God's energy, an energy deep inside, God himself willing and working at what will give him the most pleasure. That energy is God's energy. And I want to remind you of God's restoring scriptures, how God restores us. Romans 12:2. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be not conformed to the world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The 23rd Psalm, he restores my soul. Everyone has recited that when they do the 23rd Psalm. He restores my soul. So be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. He renews your mind. He restores my soul. Isaiah 40:31. They that wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like an eagle. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. When I read that, that was during one of my depressed times and down times, and saying, well, Lord, I don't know if I can ever renew my strength. I don't know what you're going to do to get me out of this. And the Lord said, well, watch me. And that's why I'm here. The Lord said, call on me in your hour of need, and I will deliver you, and you will glorify me. So I will be glorifying him from now on, because he has shown me what he can do. I have seen the power and the glory and the beauty of the Lord. I have seen the scriptures fulfilled. The promises that he made, I have seen these scriptures and the promises that he made fulfilled, and I am thankful. Jeremiah 29:11. The Lord says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans for hope for the future. I was in a hopeless situation when I read that. Plans for hope for the future. But now, here I am at age 80, still feeling that I have hope for the future, which is why I'm publishing a new book of poems. God is still taking care of me. God is still blessing me. So God blesses us so that we may bless others. Romans 24:25 says, for we are saved by hope, but hope seen is not hope. For what a man or woman seeth, what do they yet hope for? But if we hope for that we seeth not, then we do with patience wait for it. So I want to share another poem, an older poem that is one of my favorites that I wrote. It's called Positive Energy. And when I read to you Philippians 2:13, that energy is God's energy is positive energy. So how would it be if we could see positive energy, the energy that is the key to set us free and keep us young and well and strong and help us bloom our whole life long? Would it be bright like a light to help us make it through the night? Would it sparkle and shine like silver and gold? Would it reveal a lie we've been told? Would it help us not to guess whether we should say no or yes? Would it lift us up above the fray and give us the strength to find our way? Would it soothe our spirit and calm our tears and help us wash away our fears? So I hope that you agree with me that positive energy would be great to see. And what does positive energy look like to you? You know, there are some people that when they come around, you get uplifted. They are the positive energy people. And you know who the other people are. They're the ones that when they come to you, you start losing your energy and they can drain you, but don't let them drain you. Don't let people put your light out. You know, I do a radio show called Let Your Light Shine. And I say that we all have a light inside of us, and we can't let people put our light out. Plus, we should not put anybody else's light out. So remember to continue to let your light shine, because that is part of why we are here, to let our light shine. If we're in the dark, God will turn on lights for us, and sometimes he turns on lights for us through other people. So remember to let your light shine. Remember to tune in on Tuesdays at 1:30 for a Spoonful of Comfort right here on WHPR.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town